Have you ever heard of the strongest man in the Bible? A man who used the jawbone of an animal to destroy 1,000 enemies? A man who with his bare hands grabbed a roaring lion and tore it apart like it was nothing. His name was Samson, a man feared by nations, a man filled with power no one could explain. He was bold, he was fearless, no chain could hold him, no army could stand before him. But something shocking happened, something that changed everything. Not a war, not an army, a woman. Delilah, a woman from another tribe used by his enemies. With soft words and a calm voice, she drew close to him, and the strongest man in the world began to fall. They used her to set him up. The man who once broke ropes like thread was captured. The man who once stood like a king became a slave. His eyes were taken from him, his strength was gone, and the Philistines laughed as they mocked him. But they did not know one thing. Even in his weakness, Samson was not finished. Because in a moment no one expected, in a place filled with thousands, the fallen man would rise one last time and bring down an entire house upon his enemies. This is not just a story of strength. This is the story of power, betrayal, and a fall that shook a nation, and a final moment that no one could forget. Sun had not yet risen over the hills of Israel, and the land was quiet, but a deep trouble rested on the people. For many years they lived under the control of the Philistines, a powerful and cruel nation. The people cried out, but help seemed far away. Then, in a small town called Zorah, something began to change. There lived a man named Manoah and his wife. She had no child, and her heart had known sorrow for many years. One day, as she sat alone, a shining figure appeared before her. His presence was strong and peaceful, yet filled with power. He spoke gently, but his words carried weight. He told her she would have a son. This child would be special. He would be set apart for God from the day he was born. No razor must ever touch his head, and he must not drink wine or eat anything unclean. He would grow to become a deliverer of Israel, a man who would begin to break the power of the Philistines. The woman ran to tell her husband. Soon the angel appeared again, and both of them listened carefully as the instructions were repeated. They understood that this child would not live like others. He would belong to God in a very unique way. In time, the child was born, and they named him Samson. As he grew, the Spirit of God began to move in him. Even as a young man, there was something different about him. Strength lived inside him, not just the strength of muscle, but a power that came from God himself. Samson grew into a strong man, bold and fearless. But as he matured, his heart began to follow his eyes more than his calling. One day he went down to a Philistine town and saw a woman there. She was not from his people, not from his faith, yet Samson desired her. He returned home and told his parents, asking them to arrange the marriage. His parents were troubled. They warned him. They reminded him of who he was, of the calling on his life, of the difference between Israel and the Philistines. But Samson insisted. He would not listen. Though they did not fully understand, his parents followed him. What they did not see was that God was still working, even through Samson's choices, to begin a conflict with the Philistines. On the journey to see the woman, Samson walked through a vineyard. Suddenly, a young lion came roaring toward him. It was fast and deadly, but the Spirit of God came upon Samson with power. With his bare hands, he tore the lion apart as if it were nothing. No weapon, no fear, just raw strength given by God. Time passed, and when Samson returned, he found something strange. Inside the dead lion's body, bees had made a hive. There was honey there. He took it and ate it, even sharing it with his parents, though he did not tell them where it came from.
At his wedding feast, Samson gave a riddle to the Philistines. It spoke of the lion and the honey. They could not solve it, so they pressured his bride, threatening her until she begged Samson for the answer. Out of love or weakness, he told her. She betrayed him. The Philistines answered the riddle. Samson's anger burned. The Spirit of God moved in him again, and he struck down many of them. This moment marked the beginning of open conflict between Samson and the Philistines. From that day, his life became a series of powerful acts and personal failures. At one time, Samson tied torches to the tails of foxes and sent them into the fields of the Philistines, burning their crops. In anger, they struck back, killing the woman he had married. Samson responded with even greater force. The battles grew, the tension rose, yet in every moment, Samson's strength remained unmatched. Once, surrounded by 1,000 enemies, he picked up a jawbone of a donkey and defeated them all. His strength was beyond human understanding. But even in victory, Samson's weakness followed him. His heart was not fully steady before God. He often walked close to danger, close to sin, close to compromise. One night, he went into the city of Gaza, deep in Philistine territory. When the people learned he was there, they surrounded the city gates, waiting to kill him in the morning. But Samson rose at midnight, walked to the gate, and with his bare hands pulled it from the ground, posts, bars, everything, and carried it up a hill far away. It was a sign of his power, but also a warning. He was walking in dangerous places. Then came the moment that would change everything. Samson met a woman named Delilah. She lived in the valley of Sorek. She was beautiful, calm, and clever. Samson loved her deeply. But what Samson did not see, or chose not to see, was that the rulers of the Philistines came to her with an offer. They promised her great wealth if she could discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah agreed. She began gently. Soft words, sweet voice, kind eyes. She asked Samson where his strength came from. Samson played with the truth. He told her if he were tied with fresh bowstrings, he would become weak. That night, while he slept, she tied him. Then she cried out, "The Philistines are upon you!" Samson awoke, and the cords snapped like thread. The enemies hiding in the room failed. But Delilah did not stop. She pressed him again. She complained, saying he truly did not love her if he would not tell her the truth. Samson laughed it off and gave her another false answer. She tried again, and again he broke free. This went on for days. Her voice became heavier, her words sharper. She wore him down, little by little. Each day she pressed him, asking, begging, questioning. Samson grew tired. The strong man who could tear a lion apart, who could defeat armies, began to fall, not because of strength, but because of his heart. Finally, he told her the truth. He told her that no razor had ever touched his head. He told her that he was set apart to God from birth. He said that if his hair were cut, his strength would leave him. Delilah knew this time he had spoken truth. She called the Philistine rulers. They came quietly, bringing the silver they had promised. That night, Samson slept with his head in her lap. Slowly, carefully, she called a man to cut his hair. 7 locks fell to the ground. In that moment, something left Samson. Not just his strength, but the presence that gave him that strength. Then Delilah cried out again, "The Philistines are upon you!" Samson awoke, thinking he would break free as before, but this time was different. His strength was gone. The Philistines seized him. They overpowered him easily. The man who once defeated armies could not defend himself. They blinded him. They bound him. They took him to Gaza, where he was forced to grind grain like a slave. The mighty had fallen. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Samson sat in darkness, his eyes gone, his strength lost. But something began to grow again. His hair, and perhaps deep inside, his heart began to return to God. One day, the Philistines gathered for a great celebration. They praised their God, saying they had defeated Samson. They brought him out to entertain them, to mock him, to show that the once strong man was now broken. They placed him between two pillars in the temple. The building was full. Thousands of people watched from above and below. Samson stood there, weak in body, but something stirred within him. Quietly, he prayed. For the first time in a long time, he truly called on God. He asked for strength just once more. He placed his hands on the pillars. Slowly, with effort, he pushed. At first, nothing moved. Then the pillars began to shake. The ground trembled. With one final act of strength, he brought the temple down. The building collapsed, crushing the rulers and the people inside. In his death, Samson defeated more enemies than he had in his life. And so ended the story of a man chosen by God, filled with great power, yet weakened by his own choices. A man who walked between strength and weakness, calling and desire, victory and failure. But even in his fall, God's purpose was not lost. For Samson, in his final moment, he returned to the one who had called him from the beginning. And through him, the grip of the Philistines began to break.